Awesome. So, head on out. There you go. As we begin, I invite you to turn to Matthew. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 26 today. Matthew chapter 26. As you're flipping there, though, I want to start with this. We are in a world that is consumed with knowing the truth. Who killed JFK, right? We just want to know. Release the files. We want to know. Who's on this Epstein list or in the Diddy files? Who showed up to those parties, right? We want to know, are UFOs real and is our government hiding something from us, right? We just need to know these things. We want to know the truth, or at least we think we want to know the truth. I don't know, but for some reason it's a wrong sermon up there. So I don't know what's going on. I'll get Big Coop to look at it. If you find in sermons, either in 4-6 or in last week's, I just noticed it's going to be wrong. So there is a file with it. We want to know the truth, but sometimes we don't want to know the truth. Like, I really don't want to know the truth that if Michael Jordan had to quit basketball for 2 years because he was serving a suspension for gambling, like, I just want to think that he just went and played baseball because his dad loved baseball. We don't want to know if our heroes were really some kind of drug-dependent, sex-crazed, horrible person, right? We just want our heroes to be heroes. And so we don't want to know the truth always, because at times we can't handle the truth. Right? We remember that line. 1992 introduced us to that famous movie quote. A Few Good Men introduced us to this idea that we can't handle the truth. Do you remember when Tom Cruise has on the stand, right, Jack Nicholson, and he is berating him with questions, and Nicholson is evading and evading. He's this Marine colonel, and he is a hardened man, and finally Tom Cruise is yelling in young Tom Cruise fashion, "I just want to know the truth," and he says, "What? You?" Right? Spittle coming all out of his mouth. "You can't handle the truth." He goes on to tell him that, yeah, you're wanting the truth, but really you want to live in a world protected by men like me that don't tell you the truth. That we live in a world with walls, and walls that have gunmen on top, and you need me to be on that wall to protect you because you sleep in the blanket of the safety that I provide. And so today, we have another trial, and another interaction with the truth, and another time of seeing that we don't really always want the truth, and there are times that we cannot handle the truth. So if you have your Bibles, flip with me to Matthew chapter 26, verse 57. I'm going to be a bit of a diva, but I need somebody to get me a cup of water. Mike, would you mind just filling up a little cup of water from the water fountain real fast out there? I've got a terrible cough. It hit in Holy Forever, and I just am going to worry about it the whole time. So, sorry, I tried. All right, Matthew chapter 26, verse 57. Let me set you up. Jesus has been betrayed by one of the 12, Judas, who sold him for 30 pieces of silver. The innocent man, the harmless man, is now treated as a prisoner, and he is taken in the middle of the night for this trial. And here's what I want you to leave with today. I want you to leave understanding what the trial of Jesus looks like, because we talk about it, but we don't really know a lot of details of it. And I want you to understand it, and we're going to relate it. Thank you so much, Mike. All right, I'm good. Here we go. Now we're doing it. Matthew chapter 26, verse 57. You flipped there, I didn't. Here we go. Then those who had seized Jesus led him to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders had gathered. Jesus is arrested, and he is taken to the home of Caiaphas, the high priest, the one that is the spiritual leader above all of Judaism, the one that is able to go into the Holy of Holies, the one that speaks with God on behalf of the people. They are led there, and what happens? Verse 59, it says this, "Now the chief priest and the whole council were seeking false testimony against Jesus so they might put him to death." Let's pause there. They're not looking for real data to punish Jesus. They are looking for false testimony. What we see very quickly is this is not a fair trial. It is a farce. This is a witch hunt, not something honoring to God. Verse 60. They're trying to find at least enough people that can lie and tell this story about Jesus, but they found none, though many false witnesses came forward. And at least two came forward and said, this man said he's going to destroy the temple, but their stories didn't even line up. See, they were trying their best to create lies because they needed two witnesses. According to Jewish tradition and law, they needed two witnesses to corroborate the story, and they couldn't even get that. So then in verse 62, we see this. Caiaphas is tired of playing the game. He says this, and the high priest stood up and he said, have you no answer to make? What is this that these men testify against you? But Jesus remained silent, and so the high priest said to him, I adjure you, by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God. Caiaphas says, let's get straight to it, okay? We're trying to catch a he said, she said, but the he said and the she said aren't lining up, and so I'm just going to ask you the question I want to know. Are you claiming to be the Messiah? Are you saying you're from God? Are you saying you're the promised one, the one that we've waited on? Are you saying that this is who you are? Knowing that if he says yes, that is grounds for can claim to be God. What does Jesus say? Verse 64. You have said so. Are you the Messiah? Caiaphas asks. You've said so. In Mark, he's really even more poignant. He says, I am. And a reading of the Old Testament helps us to understand that I am is the name of God. And so Jesus is not only just making a statement very clearly, yes, I am the Messiah, but he's also connecting himself to God in the name of God. Jesus goes on to say in Matthew, you have said so, but I tell you, from now on you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the throne of the Father, the right hand of power, coming on the clouds of heaven. Caiaphas says, this is what the trial's all about, what you're claiming to be. Are you? Jesus says, you said it. Caiaphas freaks out. Verse 64. Or verse 65. Then the high priest, he tore his robe, and he said, he has uttered blasphemy. What further witnesses do we need? You have all heard this blasphemy. What is your judgment? And they answered, he deserves death. The trial's over. There's no even need to discuss any more. We all heard it. He claimed to be the Messiah. He should die. The trial is done. The witch hunt, we found the witch. Now let's take him to be punished. The problem for the religious people is they could try people, but they couldn't kill people. So then in 27 verse 1, we don't have it on the screen, they take Jesus to Pilate. Okay? So it starts in the garden. Jesus is praying. He's arrested. He's taken to the high priest, the leading official in Judaism. They have a trial with all the scribes and all the teachers and all the Pharisees and all the lawyers, the Sanhedrin. He is then called guilty for claiming to be the Messiah. So now they deliver him over to Pilate, the governor of this Roman precinct. They send him to Pilate because Pilate is going to be the one that can kill him. Pilate is the one that can deem the cross on him. And so early in the morning, they deliver him to Pilate. In verse 27, in chapter 27, verse 11, we're going to jump down to there. It says this. Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Jesus answers in the same way, you have said so. But when he was accused by the chief priests and the elders, he gave no answer. Then Pilate said to him, do you not hear how many things they testify against you? But again, Jesus gave no answer, not even a single charge, and the governor was greatly amazed. Jesus is brought to Pilate's house. Most likely this mob has brought him, causing quite an uproar. Pilate steps out to see what is going on. The Jews are unwilling to step into the palace of Pilate's house. Why? See, they're staying outside in some kind of courtyard or some kind of place. They will not step into Pilate's house because to step into the home of a Gentile would defile yourself. And so, in order to remain clean, especially on this day, this high holiday of Passover, the Jews are unwilling to defile themselves by stepping into the palace of Pilate, and yet they are wanting to kill the Son of God. Do you see the irony? Their focus on tradition, their focus on maintaining all of these rules while missing what was right in front of them. Pilate asked the one question that matters to him. Are you the king of the Jews? Pilate cares about another king trying to build a kingdom in his province. Why? Pilate's only job is to maintain Roman rule in his area. Pilate's just trying to keep the peace. Pilate's kind of stuck, though, because Pilate's area is predominantly Jewish. And so, as a result, he has to keep happy and he has to appease the Jewish leaders, because if the Jewish leaders are appeased, then there is no riot, there is no problem, there is no uprising, and Rome is pleased. And so Pilate is mostly a figurehead, appeasing the two powerful groups on either side of him, and as long as he threads that needle, life is great for Pilate. So they bring him, and he asks the question that he needs to know, because if a king is trying to start a kingdom, then he must squash it. He says, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus is kind of coy with him as well. You have said so. Why does Jesus not outright and say yes or no? Because Jesus defines kings differently than what Pilate thinks of a king. Pilate sees a king as a threatening army coming to overtake this land. Jesus doesn't see that. Jesus is the King of kings, and that every knee will bow below him, and they will be a footstool on which he rests upon. But that isn't the kingdom Jesus is taking. He's not a threat to Rome at this point. Pilate takes him in, most likely, for further questioning. His wife sends him word, hey, I had a dream last night. Stay away from this Jesus guy. Don't do anything. And so Pilate now is going to try to sidestep the whole Jesus situation. Verse 15 of chapter 27, it says this. Now the feast of the governor was accustomed, at the feast of the governor, it was accustomed to release for the crowd one prisoner whom they wanted. It was Passover, and so they were going to allow for a prisoner to be released. And they had a notorious prisoner called Barabbas. So when he had gathered, Pilate said to them, who do you want me to release to you? Barabbas, this insurrectionist, this murderer, this awful person, do you want me to release him, or do you want me to release Jesus, who is called the Christ? Why? For he knew that it was out of envy that they had delivered up Jesus. See, he's trying to step out of the situation. He's trying to give them a way out. He's trying to give the crowd release from this. And so he gives them what seems like a terrible option. This notorious criminal is what the scripture says. A man that was probably hated, a man that was not fun to be around, a man that had to cause trouble and stirred up problems over and over again, a man that his choices has led to the death of others. And he says, do you want this man to live among you, to be free? Or do you want Jesus, who's just helped, who's healed, who's taught, who's impressed so many people? Who do you want? Verse 20, though, we see their choice. Now the chief priests and the elders, they persuaded the crowd to ask for Barabbas and destroy Jesus. For Barabbas and destroy Jesus. And the governor said again, look, he's going, wait, really? Which of these two do you want me to release for you? And they said, Barabbas. Pilate said, then what shall I do with Jesus, who is called the Christ? Verse 22. And they all said, let him be crucified. Pilate then asked one more time, why? Verse 23. What evil has he done? But they shouted all the more, let him be crucified. Pilate's trying to wash his hands of this. Pilate's trying to get the guilt off of him for this situation. But the people will not allow it. The people are going, no, we want Jesus. They've abandoned all logic. They've abandoned all truth just to call out because this mob mentality has overtaken the whole place and they don't even have reasons to kill him, and yet they want him dead. John chapter 19, verse 15 says, and they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Shall I crucify your king? Pilate asked. What do the people say? We have no king but Caesar. They begin to put Pilate into a pretty precarious situation. They begin to leverage Pilate's position against him. And they say, if you're a friend of this man, then you cannot be a friend of Caesar. They are pretty much threatening Pilate. They say, if you do not do what we are demanding, then this will get back to you. That you are allowing a king to live in your province. And Caesar's not friendly to other kings, nor to those that allow that to take place. Pilate is stuck. They're threatening him and they're using it against him. Pilate is a professional people pleaser. And so he succumbs to what they desire. Verses 23 and 24, it's going to be down two more, Julia. It says this in John chapter 19, verse 23 and 24. It says, when the soldiers had crucified Jesus. Nope, I picked the wrong verse, sorry. Anyways, eventually what happens is he gave in to them. Oh, it's Matthew 23 and 24, I'm sorry. Matthew 27, 23 and 24. When Pilate saw he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took water, washed his hands. He said, I'm innocent of this man's blood. And the people said, his blood is on us and our children. And so they lead him, and Pilate allows for it to take place. Here's how I want to end this morning. There's a lot of instances of truth going on in the trial of Jesus. Yes, I have Carlin's Bible. Sorry, that was probably distracting. There's a lot of instances of truth around Jesus. And so I want us to look at how each person in the story handles the truth. We're going to first start with Caiaphas. Caiaphas does not desire the truth. He desires confirmation of his own bias. Caiaphas wants somebody to agree with him. Caiaphas simply wants to get grounds to kill Jesus. He does not desire the truth of what Jesus has to say. He's like that friend of yours, or maybe child of yours, or maybe parent of yours, or sibling of yours, that floats an idea out to enough people until one person says, yeah, that could work. Like everybody else is like, no, that's not good. I don't think you should do that. Nope, that's not a job for you. Nope, you shouldn't quit your job and do that. Nope, you're not built to be a teacher. It's okay. Well, one person said I am. Okay. There's a lot of times that we look for confirmation of our bias instead of the truth. We don't want criticism. We want a cheerleader. We don't want feedback. We just want people to agree with us. It's a dangerous place to be in when we're seeking to confirm our own bias rather than considering the truth. Paul writes to Timothy in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3, and he says this, for a time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but they're going to have itching ears. For they will accumulate for themselves teachers that suit their own passions. You hear that? They're just going to find teachers that teach them what they want to hear. And they're going to turn away, verse 4, from listening to the truth. And they're going to wander off into myths. Guys, we're sitting in a day where people don't want to hear the truth. They want to hear what they want to hear. They want to be told that they're right, that they're okay, that God will still love them. They want to be told that that's not a big deal, that they can do whatever they please, and that there's no punishment or challenge or conviction. You've sought out confirmation rather than truth. Maybe you've gotten upset when you hear something true because it doesn't align with what you believe is your truth. Maybe you've ended a relationship with somebody because they spoke a challenging word to you. Maybe you got mad at God because He was giving you conviction that you just wanted confirmation for. Maybe you walked away from a church because they wouldn't condone your actions and instead they pushed truth forward. Caiaphas wanted confirmation and ignored the truth, the I am, in front of him. Pilate, though, he abandons the truth in fear. Pilate is that professional people pleaser, and his whole mission is to just make sure everyone is happy. And Pilate is safe as long as he keeps everybody appeased. And so Pilate abandons the truth in fear, in his own security, in his own protection of himself, because Pilate would argue, if I believe in Jesus, it's the last thing I'm ever going to do. I could lose my life, or actually, I will lose my life if I do not kill this man. Either the mob will riot and kill me, or Caesar will hear of this and I will be killed. So Pilate abandons truth in fear. I've learned in the 13 or 14 years of marriage that there are times that I have to let the truth lie for the sake of love. There are times in marriage that even though I'm right, and I think most of the time, that it's not about being right always, that it's about the relationship. However, in matters of eternal significance, we cannot choose relationship over being right. Now, that doesn't mean be a jerk and argue. We're going to talk about that at the very end. But it matters because we cannot soften the truth, we cannot abandon the truth, and we can't water down the truth. We have to stand on what is right. But fear will tempt you to compromise the truth, won't it? Fear of what others think or what others say will tempt you to compromise the truth. It'll tempt you to be silent at a family gathering or in a group of friends that are bad-mouthing this idea of religion, and it's just simpler to say silent. Fear will tempt us to soften the truth and to go, well, I guess that could be okay. I got a call one day from a person who told me everything about their niece, and there was zero positive. There was zero mention of church, zero mention of faith, zero mention of Christianity. There was lots of mentions of drugs, lots of mentions of promiscuous living, and all of this. And that person died, and they wanted me just to say, they asked, do you think they're in heaven? And they just wanted me to confirm. But we can't soften the truth. We can't undercut who God is and what He has taught just because we want people to feel better. We see this happen all the time. Maybe you're at work and your work is causing you to affirm values that go completely against what you believe. Or maybe as a teacher that you're having to teach certain things that they think science is telling us that you do not believe. Or maybe you're afraid to post something on social media because of the backlash that you're going to feel. Or maybe you walk into Easter lunch in a few weeks on eggshells because you know that uncle's there, and if anybody brings this topic up, that uncle's just not going to stop railing against Christianity. So it's easier just in fear, just to abandon the truth in that moment. The crowd, and I'll add this one too. Pastors are even afraid with the truth at times, avoiding talking about certain subjects and certain verses because it may alienate or it may cause frustration. And so we even have times that we're afraid to stand on the truth. But the truth must be the focus and the bedrock of everything that we do. Third, the crowd. The crowd outright rejects the truth. Jesus is right there. They have seen Him teach. They have seen Him do this. And what do they say? We don't even want to listen. Pilate says, what has He done? What are the charges? Do they give any charges? No. Their lies couldn't even line up. Instead, they just yell louder with their fingers in their ears, "Crucify him!" instead of listening. You see how bad it gets as animal instincts take over. They strike Jesus. They spit on Jesus. They slap Jesus across the face. They mock him over and over again. They call for a murderer to be released, and they murder an innocent man. When we abandon truth, there is no depth that we cannot reach of terribleness. They even claim in Matthew chapter 27, verse 25, His blood be on us and our children. They say in chapter 19, verse 15 of John, we have no king but Caesar. Friends, we live in a world that is rejecting truth, rejecting gender, rejecting marriage, rejecting design, rejecting justice, rejecting human decency. We live in a world that is so consumed with politics that we don't even care about people. We just care about our policies being instated, not what that does for a person. We care more about being right, and even when we're wrong, we just try to make it seem like we're right. Of a known murderer standing up just trying to get a mistrial. Instead of just going honestly and saying, you know what? I've wavered from the truth. It's a scary place to be when we reject truth. People reject truth all the time because it's inconvenient, it's uncomfortable, and it conflicts with our own personal desires. Morality is now a subjective thing. There's no absolute truth. You do what you want to do, and that's okay for you. We live in a world that has reshaped sex, has reshaped marriage, has reshaped gender, all to fit the preference they desire, not the absolute truth. We live in a world of a la carte Christianity. What does that mean? We go through the line like we're at Luby's, picking out, well, I want some of this, and I want some of this, and that doesn't taste good to me, so I'm not going to follow that part. Oh, and yeah, give me the Jell-O at the end and a chocolate pie. We want the grace, we want the mercy, but we don't want the honesty of God saying to live in this way and to honor me with your life. No, we'll just lean into we can still get dessert. We've abandoned the truth. We've rejected the truth. If it doesn't feel right, then it must not be right. Are you rejecting truth in some place because you don't want to deal with it? Has God been exposing and convicting you in some areas, but you just don't want to acknowledge it? That life is simpler if you don't even ponder those questions. Consider those topics. Deal with those issues. Finally, and this is a hard one, but I want you to understand it. Jesus doesn't waste the truth on those who don't listen. Jesus doesn't waste the truth on those that don't want to listen. Jesus has argued in temples. He has been questioned by people all the time, and every time they never can trap him. Every time he teaches them in a new way that opens their understanding. But Jesus here knows that these people don't care about the truth. They don't want to know who he is. They just want to kill him. Jesus doesn't waste the truth on those who don't want to listen. Rather than debating them from Pilate's pavilion, Jesus sits silently, submits to the mob mentality, submits to an unfair trial, submits to unjust punishment, submits to God's will. And Jesus doesn't just start going, you're missing it all. Let me explain it to you. You are wrong. What does Jesus do as he hangs on the cross? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. We are to share the truth honestly, and purposefully. But there are also times that we just have to step away. Maybe you post something on Facebook and somebody just wants to attack you. How can you believe in that? Well, God isn't good in this way. Well, how can you say God's good because I just buried my mom? I'm sorry. We have to be careful here, but before we just run into endless circles of debates with people who don't want to listen. There's no point in debating someone that doesn't want to listen. Can we share the truth? Sure. But I really think the call for us then is we share the truth and then we live it out. We're not going to debate anybody into faith. The Holy Spirit has to soften hearts. The Holy Spirit has to work to reveal sin and to show grace. We have to be careful just constantly going into the endless arguments. And we need to be focused on living it out. So I ask you as we close today, how do you handle the truth? When you see the truth, how do you handle it? Are you like Caiaphas, pushing it away so you can confirm your own opinions? Are you like Pilate, afraid to stand on truth because of the fear of what it could mean for you? Are you like the crowd, rejecting parts of the truth that don't fit well with you, that you don't like? Or do we need to be like Jesus, who stands on the truth but also understands that there is a time to share it and a time to show it? And that we can't focus on just winning debates constantly, but living out the faith in a way that is intriguing and desirous. As we close, what I want to do is I want to end with what happens on Friday. The soldiers, if you wouldn't mind, turn the room lights off, leave all these on for us. If you will, just the main, those two, you got them, Julia. I just want you to listen. If you want, bow your head and just hear the story. After the trial, after Friday, the soldiers of the governor took him into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and put a reed in his right hand, and kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spit on him, and they took the reed, and they struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, Mark says, and when they got tired of mocking him, they stripped him of the robe, and they put his own clothes on him, and they led him away to be crucified. And they went out, and they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. They compelled the man to carry the cross. And when he came to the place called Golgotha, they offered him wine to drink mixed with gall, but when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments by casting lots, and then they sat down and they kept watch over him there. And over his head they put the charge against him, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." 2 robbers were crucified, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you're the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests and the scribes and the elders, they mocked him, saying, "He saved others. He can't save himself. He's the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross and we'll believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now if he desires him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" And the robbers who were crucified with him reviled him in the same way. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. That's 3 hours. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Eli, Eli, lema sabachthani." That is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders said, "Is this man calling Elijah?" And one ran and took a sponge and filled it with sour wine, and they put it on a reed, and they gave it to him to drink. And others said, "Wait, let us see if Elijah will come and save him." And Jesus cried out again and with a loud voice he yielded up his spirit. When it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who was also a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and he asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate ordered it be given to him, and Joseph took the body, wrapped it in clean linen, and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had cut with a rock. And he rolled a great stone to the entrance, and everyone went away. For the last 7 weeks, we have been looking at the story of Jesus. From arriving to a parade, to clearing out the problems in the temple, to teaching that what matters most is that we love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. We have watched him kneel down and humbly wash the feet of those that he loves, including Judas. We have watched Judas betray him for 30 pieces of silver, and we have watched this witch hunt take place that will lead to his death. 15 hours from his arrest, Jesus is dead because the people couldn't handle the truth. As we step into the next 2 weeks of the Easter season, I hope that the truth of what has happened, the truth of who Jesus is and how much he loves, the reality of the cross and that it was required, is deeply understood in your soul and that you're changed by it. Let me pray for us as we close. Dear God, we read the horrifying text of what happens to you. And we are just so overwhelmed by how evil we can become, how much we can hate when we reject the truth. God, I pray for every man and woman in this room right now that they understand that you willingly allowed all of this to happen to you because you love them. That you willingly said yes to the cross because you knew it was the only way that we could be with you forever. And so, God, I pray that the truth of what has happened 2,000 years ago, that the truth of your great love for us that was on display as the blood ran down your forehead and your hand shot with pain and your legs were fastened to a wooden cross. God, may we never forget that you did that for me. You did that for me. You did that because you love me. You did that because you desire me. You did that because you want me to be yours forever. And so, God, I pray right now, there's a lot of points we can remember. There's a lot of details that maybe we learned today, but God, I pray that we don't walk out of here without knowing deeply that you did this for me. And that I can have joy, and I can have hope, and I can be at peace even in the storms of life. That I can know that you are good even when life isn't good. That I can look to you in the terrible things and know that you are greater than whatever I'm experiencing. God, I pray that everyone in this room, no matter their burdens, no matter the barriers, no matter the issues, no matter the relationships that have been broken, God, we know that you are the reconciler, and so I pray that we know this story today. The story of a unjust trial that led to an innocent man dying. But it's the story of salvation coming to the undeserved, and honestly, even to the unwanting. So God, I pray today that you rock our church and every person in it with the truth of this message. God, I pray today that you let us see the truth and that the truth sets us. Whatever and in whatever way we need to work on our